How should governments address the next phase of the pandemic? And what should be done now to deal with the ongoing trucker demonstrations and occupations? Let's find out. Joining me now is NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh. Lots going on politically, but just let's start personally. Congratulations on the baby and your family growing. Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
That's pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about the protest. This is a big deal. The new interim leader for the Conservatives, Candace Bergen, has asked the government to, quote, offer the trucker protesters on Parliament Hill a, quote, olive branch. The Liberals say, no, we're not negotiating them. They support the police. If you were the Prime Minister right now, what would you do to end the protest?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things. First, we want to be really clear. There are some hateful, completely wrong elements of this protest that I fully denounce, and I've denounced from the beginning. I do want to separate that, which is completely unacceptable. The situation is untenable for people in Ottawa. The kids can't go to school. Businesses are shut down. Small businesses aren't been able to reopen, even though there is a reopening. And people feel locked in their homes and they feel afraid. And that's just wrong. There is a sentiment out there in Canada where people are frustrated with the pandemic. And I want to just say that people are right to be frustrated. It's been a long time. They're angry. But they're also specifically angry about the fact they can't find a home they can afford. Groceries are going up. Their healthcare system isn't there for their loved ones when they need it. And we need to fix those problems. And there needs to be a clear plan. What does it look like to get out of this pandemic? And I think those things need to be done. I think Mr. Trudeau hasn't really shown that leadership to provide that plan to the broader Canadian
but
population that's wondering what's going on.
But there's a protest. There's an occupation going on. And the demands are lift the mandates now. If you were in office, this is not a long, the housing issue is a real issue. I'm not going to do, but it's not that's not the issue on the Hill right now. How would you do it? People are, we're in a minority government. If you were the Prime Minister, what would you do right now?
Well, the reason why I make this connection to the broader kind of anger that Canadians are feeling is because there are people, surprisingly, that are kind of showing an affinity for what is otherwise a completely wrong, organizers that are completely wrong, elements of this protest are completely wrong, but there seems to be some support amongst broader Canadians. And I feel like if we address the fact that Canadians are frustrated, they are angry, they want a plan out of this pandemic, they don't know what that looks like, they've gotten vaccinated, but there isn't actually any
So what are you saying?
Light at the end of the tunnel.
I know, but the provinces are saying it is the science tables and the healthcare leaders who are saying the reason we have these restrictions is because our ICUs and hospitals were overwhelmed. Now the numbers are going down. Do you have a sense that, okay, once the ICUs can handle capacity, do you end mask mandates? Do you end mandatory mandates for cross-border truckers? Do you end mandatory mandates for federal workers? Would you put that stuff on the table, sir?
Well, I wouldn't put it on the table with these folks that are holding Ottawa hostage. But I do want Canadians to have a sense of what is the plan. And I feel like people don't know what the plan is. And I feel like that does create frustration. And that frustration emboldens people. And it can be used and misused to exploit that anger that people feel and channel it in the wrong direction. You pointed this out, and you're absolutely right. The folks that are protesting mandates are protesting Ottawa when all these mandates are actually provincial. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But what Mr. Trudeau could do is provide some national leadership. Here is what the plan looks like for us to get out of this. Here's what a post-COVID scenario is going to look like.
What do you think of Conservative members of Parliament going out? Look, everyone's got the right to peacefully protest, and saying these are just peaceful protesters. They're good Canadians. They're going out there. They're supporting this trucker protest. They're taking pictures and they're tweeting about it. And they are supporting this, even though the Premier, the Mayor, and the federal government has said this is not the protest to support. What do you make of Conservatives supporting them openly?
I think Conservatives have taken a wrong course here. They're emboldening some of the worst of what we've seen in their actions. They're not making it clear that it's wrong to have organizers of this be openly divisive and hateful. They've taken a position that's really emboldening some of the worst behavior. And I think that's the wrong approach.
I just want your comment on this. The Globe and Mail first obtained and then CTV confirmed this letter from the interim Conservative leader Candace Bergen. She wrote to Erin O'Toole's senior leadership team when she was the deputy leader. This is just last Monday. And she said, quote, I don't think we should be asking them, the protesters, to go home. I understand the mood, she later wrote, may shift soon, so we need to turn this into the Prime Minister's problem. What does that tell you about her approach to this?
Well, and this is really important, and this is something I wanted to say earlier, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity. I think on both sides, the conservatives are clearly using this. They're weaponizing this convoy. They're using it for political gain, and the liberals are also not innocent here. They're also looking at this as a wedge issue. I want us to look at this. This is the pandemic. This is the frustration of people. This is a situation that's very tense. It's not something to be used as a game. It's not something to be weaponized. It's not something to be manipulated for our personal gain.
Mr. Singh, one of your members, Peter Julian, tabled a private member's bill that would prevent anyone from selling or displaying symbols that promote hatred, like the Confederate flag or the swastika. Now, we already have Section 319 of the Criminal Code that bans that kind of thing in general, not in specific. Why should there be a more specific law needed when we already have tools to do those things?
Well, what we're seeing is that hate is being emboldened. And I've always said from the beginning that hate is very much like a fire. Once it's allowed to take hold, it spreads and it starts consuming everything. If it's okay to hate someone based on their religion, it's okay to hate someone based on their gender, their sexuality, their language, where they come from. And so we need to stop hate in its tracks. And one of the things that we know is a kind of a flashpoint for mobilizing people are certain symbols of hate. And that's why I've been really specific. There are 3 symbols of hate that we want to see banned in Canada. They've got no place in Canada. And there's broad consensus on this. The swastika, Confederate flags, and anything around the KKK.
Where do you find the reasonable limit to balance the freedom of expression, where you have to defend things you don't like, and all of a sudden the government's saying, you know what, we're going to start banning things?
Well, I think these 3 symbols, it's very clear what they stand for, and it's very clear they should not have any place in Canada. And that's where we're limiting this to a very specific set of symbols, those 3. And I think it's the right thing to do. I think it sends a clear message.
I should say, in the proposed legislation, for people that are interested, if it's used for educational purposes or in a film like that, it would be allowed. So that doesn't ban that, just for the record. I do have to leave it there. NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh, good to have you back on the program. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Take care.